read Quicksilver Messenger Service, things like that. Big influence on me, really open-minded, free-thinking groups that were very eclectic. I wanted to be really eclectic. I wanted to take all the ideas from all the kinds of music I listened to, world music, everything, well, everything we're talking about, and mix it together on guitar. And I wanted to learn free improvisation, completely freely improvised music. Music, not music without structure, but music that creates its own structure every time you play. The players create a new structure, and that's what you listen for partly, is the structure. And I had a lot of records of that kind of stuff. I had some records of a guitar player from Great Britain, a guy named Derek Bailey. And his guitar playing amazed me. It just really tore me apart and shook my heart up, and I said, I really like this. I got to go get a guitar. I got to learn how to play. I got to figure out what this guy does, because he had new sounds, things I'd never heard before. And oddly enough, most people haven't even heard of him. He's made probably 80, 90, 100 records. He's very well known in Europe. He plays all over Europe, but you never hear about him in America. He never comes over here. He has very few records on U.S. labels, and he's very non-commercial, very experimental, very weird. He developed a whole new vocabulary for the electric and acoustic guitars. And let me show you what my version of his style sounds like. I've got this hollow body 335 here with a trapeze tailpiece, place where I can bend strings behind the bridge if I want to. And it's in standard tuning, and it's in tune. Here's an E chord, a G chord, you hear, F chord. It's in tune. It's not out of tune, because when I start playing this style, you'll think, oh, his guitar's out of tune or something. Pretty weird sounding stuff. Turn that reverb down a little. Pretty weird sounding. So I listened to this. He had a lot of records playing with a lot of different people, with piano players, saxophone players, and drummers, and I was amazed. So I said, I'm going to figure out what this guy does. And I found some interviews with him. There was no books, no information. I just listened to the records really hard and tried to figure out what he was doing. And I noticed there were certain vocabulary elements he was using, which I'm going to show you now. And if you look in the booklet, there's some examples of some of the things I'm playing. And I'm not going to play specific repetitive exercises and show them to you, because I want you to make up your own exercises and look at the materials in the book, which I think is plenty to work from, and get ideas from this. Derek plays a lot of clusters, groups of notes. I don't really call them chords, that are really dissonant and don't have the kind of harmonic structure that we usually hear in jazz music and Western music. Actually, they have the harmonic structure of a lot of 20th century classical music after Anton Webern. He'd play chords a lot that have minor seconds grouped next to each other, like these, bridged by fourths here. A different sound, a powerful sound, and there's a lot of power to those kind of chords. Powerful sound. He'd play very wide intervals on the guitar. In the booklet, there's a wide interval exercise of his. Once more, kind of, I'm playing it sloppy. Something like that. You look in the book, you can see. You play very wide intervals. I practiced this kind of stuff and got a lot of facility moving across strings that was useful later on in country music and other kinds of music. He'd play, sometimes I think he'd organize his playing instead of by scales or chords, by intervals. He'd say, I'm going to move around and play a lot of notes and play fast, but every time I move from one note to another, I'm going to just move by certain categories of intervals. So he'd say, let's see, minor seconds, minor sevenths, and fourths. And then he would only jump from one note to another with those bridging intervals. And he developed exercises that developed the ability to do this, his own patterns and things, and developed his own kind of music in a language once he had the vocabulary. Derek would use harmonics on the guitar, natural harmonics, harmonics played off open strings. We usually play them 12th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, and that's about all you hear. But there's harmonics all over the whole guitar neck at all the frets, and Derek figured out how to use all of these in his music. Let's take a look at the low E string here. Look at the diagram in the book, and where I've listed all the harmonics on the whole neck, and you can see the low E string at the 2nd fret. There's an F sharp harmonic on the E string. The 2nd and the 3rd fret, 2nd and the 3rd in between the frets, there's an E. The 3rd fret, there's a B. 4th fret, there's a G sharp. 5th fret, E, of course. 6th fret's a D. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get these harmonics to speak, to use heavy strings, to pick near the bridge, and have a light touch with this, with the left hand helps a lot. 7th fret, there's a B. 8th fret, there's a B flat. 9th fret, there's a G sharp. And between the 10th and 11th frets, it's kind of tough. There's a kind of a D in between the 10th and 11th in there somewhere. And there's the old E at the 12th fret, and this same pattern is repeated on up the neck. There's also a lot of harmonics up high on the guitar and way down low, too. So, Derek took all these harmonics, made a chart like the one in the booklet, knew where they were all over the neck, and made up exercises and things to develop a facility to move around them. We play the blues scale or normal scales, and we play them a lot, so it's very easy to move around. Well, he just made up new patterns to move around in, and which let him play new kinds of music, to develop a musical language once he had those new vocabulary and the new neuromuscular ability to move in those ways, which shows you could do that to think of anything you wanted to do and make up your own exercises. Let me just show one of the exercises I've written out in the book for you, which is a chromatic scale, all played in harmonics. That's 4th string, 6th fret. 5th string, 4th fret. 3rd string, 7th fret. 5th string, 8th fret. 5th string, 7th fret. 3rd string, 6th fret. 2nd string, 7th fret. 3rd string, 5th fret. 4th string, 8th fret. Tricky one. 2nd string, 6th fret. Another tricky one. 1st string, 8th fret. And 1st string, 7th fret. And finally back to the C on the 4th string at the 6th fret. So I used to practice things like that to try to get the facility in Derek Bailey's language. He practiced stop notes mixed with harmonics, mixed with open strings. There's some exercises in the booklet. I used to practice this stuff, and it got so I can move around. And I used to really know what I was doing, but I think it's become more of an intuitive kind of thing now. But I mix all those notes up. It's interesting picking. Derek also would bend behind the bridge on the strings of his ES-175. He wouldn't do it in an exaggerated way like I do, kind of a subtle way. Or release bends. I've really gotten into adding a lot of funny vibrato to these kind of notes. Another thing that Derek Bailey was really a master of was the use of the volume pedal. Steel guitar players are great at this, but not too many other people. He could sneak notes in. play long notes that go up and down dynamically, louder and softer, which isn't something you hear a guitar do too much.